arrive here. And when I say arrive, you're like, I'm sitting here, aren't I? And what I mean by arrive is really take space in this room and be here right now. And notice, if you will, if you can feel comfortable closing your eyes, do so. And if you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, gently fixing your gaze on something that isn't moving. Arriving to this room, noticing what is here from before. Perhaps being curious about what's to come. Noticing the energy you have or don't. Noticing the temperature, the sensations you might be feeling in your body. Almost being a detective. Not needing to change anything, rather a noticing of what is and coming to just as you are in this moment. On your next in-breath, just notice if you bring it in through your nose or mouth and follow that breath down into the belly. And notice when you bring air in, the belly rises. And when you release air out, the belly falls. And then notice where you release air out on your next out-breath, through your nose or mouth. Notice if you're holding your shoulders tight or tense, or if you're holding a particular posture that's rigid or stiff or tight. And almost imagine if you're like kelp in the ocean and just relaxing and releasing in, whatever that looks like for you. And then being present to your face. Noticing if you're holding a facial expression that you don't need anymore. Notice if you're holding your jaw clenched, your teeth tight, your forehead in any particular way. Letting it go, releasing into what is, into this moment right now. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, just being here. Just noticing how you feel now, and that you can take a piece of how you feel right now with you to the rest of your day if you choose. And if your eyes are closed, gently let light come back in and come back to the room. Anyone feel different than they did before? A little bit? The thing with mindfulness and mindfulness practices, they don't have to be long to have an impact. In fact, research supports that some practice is efficacious. And so it doesn't require an hour sit. We're not going to levitate. It does not require, I grew up in a tradition of formal mindfulness practice. I was trained in that way. And it used to drive me crazy because I'm a little fidgety, I'm a little wiggle worm, and I don't really want to sit for 45 minutes in my own head because it's kind of scary up there. So, it's about making mindfulness make sense for you and making mindfulness make sense for those you're working with. I want to point out that there's free pig pens in the back, and I have been a pig pen pusher. The pen is about my talk today. It is, how do we get young people to be healthy and experience well-being? What's the secret sauce? Mindfulness, yes, but not only mindfulness. It's us. It's all of us. And what I mean by that is I'd like you to take a moment to reflect back to your own youth or childhood. Think about the first person that pops into your mind when you think about someone who made a difference for you. Might be a teacher, might be a family member, a family friend, a coach, someone you've had very few interactions with. It could have been a momentary passing, but someone that made that difference to you when you were younger. When you think of that person, raise your hand and keep your hand up, please. Now take that hand and turn it back on yourself. You are now in that position. And I mean that very seriously. Sometimes we don't realize the impact we're having and who we're touching, like the impact of who we are having that impact on. Whose lives are we impacting and making a difference for that we might not even know? The kid with the hoodie who doesn't look at you, who looks like they're not getting anything out of working with you or meeting with you or talking with you, you might be very, very surprised. My person was Mrs. Carroll. She's a high school teacher. And she would wear her hair in like a bun and a bow, and her bow would always match her outfit, and she'd have this pretty little jewelry and all matched, and she was very cute and sweet, like the grandma mother type I never had. And this year I was teaching at Stanford at the Children's Health Council. 2 of the people in the room worked with Mrs. Carroll, who still teaches at that high school. I get goosebumps thinking about it. We took a picture and sent it to her. I couldn't believe she's still teaching because now she might be a little bit older than 21. That was a joke. I always said I wanted to be a comedian, but I wasn't funny, so I became a therapist. That was a joke. And I really do, here's the deal is, even if you're not teaching mindfulness to someone, if you are more mindful, it's going to impact the relationships you have with everyone. I realize I only have a 50-minute talk, so I'm going to keep going. I was listening and very taken by the conversations yesterday. And it's really important for us to know our story. What got us to this moment? What is our story? How do we define ourselves? And how does that define us or not? And that your story matters. What got you to this moment matters. Don't think for a second it doesn't, because it does. Your work matters. Where you're stuck matters. And the last one, doing your own work matters. I say this, so I wasn't sure if I was going to share this with anyone at this conference. The last time I was in Chicago, it was when I lived in Peoria when I was in 6th grade, when my mother uprooted me to live with her domestic violence boyfriend from California, moved and transplanted me to the projects of Peoria. This is the first time I have been back to Illinois since. I am 40 years old. I woke up last night in the middle of the night, and it was like this rush of all of this. And not that I haven't done my work, because let me tell you, I have. I am white, and I grew up in the projects. I had hand-me-down clothes. I got coupon tickets for breakfast and lunch. My Christmas presents came from a place that we would go, and she would put them in the trunk. I moved 13 times before I went to high school. That's my story. That's why I'm doing this work. None of us do this work for no reason. And if we do happen to get here for some reason we don't know why, we just felt like being a teacher, or felt like being a therapist, cool on ya. But I'd say 9 times out of 10 we're sitting here because of some reason. And it's not necessarily my story, but it's your story. And the information, if you've done your work, that information of your story is valuable because it makes you human. And it makes you be able to connect with those you're working with. Like teens are really good bullshit detectors. And if you come in a room and aren't you, and you're trying to be someone else, they're gonna know, period. And so that's why I work well with teens. I don't work really well with little kids. I mean, they're okay, I'm getting older, so I'm better with that. I didn't like little kids. I was all uncomfortable with them when I was first doing this. I'm being real. We work with teens for a reason. There's a certain reason why people don't want to work with teens. I'm not really sure what that is because that isn't my story. I shared my personal story not as a way, feel bad for me. Oh, look at her. It's look at where I've come. Oh my gosh, I'm standing in front of you with a program I created 15 years ago that people thought I was crazy for doing. This movement didn't exist, and now it does. And that's why I stood up yesterday, if you were here yesterday, and I said, just knock on doors until a door opens, because eventually one will. And if it hasn't, and you're having trouble and you're stuck, write me an email. My card's in the back. You'll get my personal email when I send you my PowerPoint. I mean that. We've been talking, people have been talking about ACEs a lot, and trauma a lot. How many of you have done your own ACEs score? It's important to know. It is very valuable to know. How many of you have heard of Nadine Burke-Harris? She blows my mind. She's the new Surgeon General for California. This book came out last month. January. Yeah, so January. The Deepest Well. I started reading the introduction of this book. The tears started coming down my face. And as much as we need to focus on being in a trauma-informed classroom and our kids, their trauma, we got to know where our stuff is and where we're still stuck. You know, and being able to say you're still stuck. And being able to say sometimes you're burned out. What I find is if we don't share our humanity and where we're stuck in our struggles, we're setting ourselves up to fail. And we're setting ourselves up to miss amazing opportunities. What is taking in the good? Well, taking in the good is my phrase for positive neuroplasticity. When you are mindful or bring mindfulness into your life, what do you do with it? Do you attend to things that are nourishing, supporting to you, fill you up? Or do you attend to the negative? Do you attend to things that one person who didn't like something you posted, that one thing your boss said, that one picture you didn't work? What do you focus on? Where do you put your attention? So once someone's more mindful and present and paying attention to their thoughts and feelings and sensations, they can just as easily still attend to things that are harming and negative, but we can teach them to turn to the positive. And so mindfulness isn't everything. Mindfulness is a piece, and mindfulness is mindfulness-based. I call my program mindfulness-based stress reduction for teens. And what that means is it's not just mindfulness. It's gratitude and compassion and kindness and acceptance and self-care and all these resilience. It's all these wonderful things that will lead to one's well-being. And when you think about your cell phone, usually it's charged. We generally take care of it. Our car generally has gas so we can drive. What are our indicators when we're on empty? Do we take better care of our smartphones than we do ourselves? What do we need to know when we need nourishing, when we need support, when we need to fill ourselves up? The same with youth. When are youth taught what self-care is? When are youth taught what well-being is? We ask a lot of young people to do things that we aren't teaching them. I'm not saying all of you, but I'm saying in general, if you talk about self-care, you need to explain what it is. If you talk about positive coping skills, explain what it is. And I say that because I'm struck time and time again when I'm working with groups of young people that do not know what these things are, and they're in high school. Well-being, I came up with this idea of a bank, aside from it being kind of cute. It's this idea of coins. You know, we save money, hopefully a few coins here. We're taught when we're little, you know, in the United States to put money in a piggy bank to save for a rainy day. Well, basically that's what we need to do, is we need to take care of ourselves. Young people need to take care of themselves and fill themselves up so that when adversity does strike, when difficulties arise, when pains happen, they're able to tolerate it versus being on empty. You can't pour from an empty water bottle. You can't give yourself if there's nothing to give. And so when you attend to things that are pleasant in your life, and take notice of them, not only do you get the benefit of enjoying them in the moment, you get to resource yourself. You are also getting a stored benefit so that when you are in a hard or difficult experience, you are able to tolerate it better. What is neuroplasticity? What do I mean when I talk about this? It is the ability of the brain to change by creating and reorganizing neural connections, especially in response to learning or experience. The brain wants to change. It wants to grow through the lifespan, not just in a certain time frame, through the lifespan. I mean, the last couple years, I'm sure you've seen those commercials for like, you pay a certain amount of money a month and your brain's gonna get stronger. You know, you'll play these games or whatever. They've kind of cut back, so I'm like, they're not as fresh in my mind. But the whole point of that came out of the research showing that our brains are constantly changing. Our brain wants and yearns for positive experience. It savors and wants pleasant experiences. However, it doesn't necessarily differentiate from a pint of Haagen-Dazs and a hug from a friend. It wants good things. Sometimes they aren't good for us, right? That pint of Haagen-Dazs occasionally is okay though. I'm giving you permission. Gina told me that it was okay for me to eat a pint of Haagen-Dazs. Occasionally, staying in your PJs watching Netflix all day is not a bad thing. Doing it for a week may be a problem. Everything in moderation. That was still a joke. All right, at least you're listening. What is positive neuroplasticity? The positive neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to change in response to this positive or pleasant experience, particularly those that are healthy for us. And by tilting toward the positive, you're creating new neural connections and new neurons. This research, this data is based on Richie Davidson's work at University of Wisconsin. And it currently shows that we have the capacity to grow and create 1,400 new neurons a day and create new neural connections. Our brain adapts and changes based on the way we use it. And what that means, though, is we can continue to facilitate and tilt toward the negative. We have an automatic tendency as a protection based on our ancestry and our heredity to prepare to be maybe attacked or threatened. Our body is preparing for that. It's on the lookout. It's on the watch. And if you've experienced trauma, you're hypervigilant. You're even more prepared for that. But even those who are raised in the most amazing environment, we still have this negative selection bias, this tendency to tilt to the negative. Some of us more so. It's like the Debbie Downer on Saturday Night Live. It's like, wah, wah. You know, that person who's like, oh God, are you going to complain again? You know, sometimes some of us have that tilt more. And so what we have a choice to is to move that tilt away from the glass half empty to the glass half full, even those who are the wah, wah. And so you, every day, every moment, have a choice to tilt toward the positive instead of the negative. And learn, and that mindfulness comes in as that awareness of, oh, I'm going down that path again. Oh, here's negative Nelly again. Oh, I'm worrying about a gun being pointed at me, but wait, it's a green plastic a gun that's shooting out water at me. I don't need to be scared. You know, it's about noticing those automatic tendencies. And it's not an overnight experience of change, but it's a moment-to-moment experience, meaning that in this moment, I have the choice, I have the power to choose how I want to be, how I want to respond, and not react. When you look at what mindfulness is, it puts this pause, this space between what is in your environment, your stimuli, and it allows you to respond. And when you think about teens who often feel very powerless for good reason, they can't do necessarily a lot of things. Their parents are telling them what to do, internet's telling them what to do, their friends, the magazines, you know, coaches, all these people are telling them what to do and how to be. And the thing is where do teens and young people have control? Well, they get to choose how they respond and feel, and they can choose how they want to be and how they want to focus their attention on the positive or not, if they're taught. And so giving people control in areas in which they don't necessarily think or feel they have control is pretty awesome. You're allowing for teens to feel a sense of coherence. You're allowing them to feel a sense of agency, power, feel that they have skills and sources from within. Instead of trying to go get something from out there, that next feel-good from out there, or that Band-Aid from somewhere to minimize that pain. I don't want people to be in pain, but it's going to happen. And so if they can tolerate it and learn to walk through it, that's amazing. I didn't tell you this, but I'm a therapist. I'm a marriage family therapist. I have worked in both education and in mental health and outpatient settings and clinical settings, all kinds of settings for the last 15 years. The kids I see in my clinical work, they're the kids in the classrooms, they're no different. And you're on the front lines with them every day. And so what do you do with 30 plus kids who are struggling in all their own ways? And how do you help them when they're in an environment at home perhaps that's helping them avoid pain at any cost? I say this because I have parents often, like a teen will be crying in my office with the parents, and the parents will be freaking out, and it's like, it's okay to cry sometime. It's okay to feel that pain. It's okay to fall down and get back up again. I see a lot of young people getting ready to go into their young adult years and into college, and they're already burned out. They have to call in sick to take naps to catch up on sleep. This is real, but we can help them get from an I can't to an I can. And we all have the same capacity. Everything I'm talking to you about applies to us as well. Period. We're not so different from teens. I mean, in the sense that our brains are further developed, we are hopefully a little bit more mature, and yes, our histories and our stories have created us today, but in reality, the things I'm teaching apply to us as well. How do we get rid of the things that drain us and deplete us? How do we help young people identify who those haters are, who those people that are bringing them down are? How do we help them to understand that they have the ability to say no, that they don't have to explain themselves? As a woman in the current political climate and area, I've never felt more aware of my being a woman than I do now and today. And I know for myself, I used to have to feel like I'd have to explain myself. And I realized a lot of that comes from my training, so to speak. And what I've learned is, however you identify yourself, we don't have to explain ourselves. We can just say no. And those of us in the helping profession, whatever it might be, we don't have to take on more than others. I know that I used to think that I could take on just a little more than you. I could do that. I could do it for a little bit. And then I couldn't. Things catch up to us. It's like a pot of boiling water. It will catch up to us. So, how do we teach people to plant seeds? How do we teach young people to nourish themselves and support themselves and fill them up with those things that bring them happiness, peace, and joy? How about asking a person what brings them happiness, peace, and joy? How about asking yourself? When's the last time you asked yourself what brings you happiness, peace, and joy? And are you allowed to talk about what brings you happiness, peace, and joy? Do people really want to hear it? I do an activity I'm teaching tomorrow if you're here. I'm doing it day long, and we'll do this practice. And what I ask people to do with a partner is share for 2 minutes what brings you happiness, peace, and joy. The person listens, and then you reflect back what you heard your partner share. And what I'm struck by is how hard it is for someone to fill 2 minutes. I used to start with 3 minutes, and people were kind of angry at me. Like, how dare you ask me to talk about what brings me happiness, peace, and joy for 3 minutes? And so now I'm 2 minutes. Sometimes I'll ask this question and do this activity, and people will cry. And that is sad to me. Sometimes if someone's experienced grief recently, it's a very hard topic to talk about, I understand. But sometimes our kids, they have no idea what brings them happiness, peace, or joy. Or they tell you what brings them happiness, peace, and joy is staying online until 3 in the morning on social. I'm glad that brings you happiness, peace, and joy, but when you can't get up in the morning and then you start fighting with your parents and then you don't go to school and then you get in trouble with the truancy officer and then blah, 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 blah. Right? It keeps going. So, pull weeds, plant seeds. One of my dearest friends and mentors today is Rick Hansen, and hence why I came up with Taking the Good, a teen version of his work in positive neuroplasticity. And he has an acronym for facilitating positive neuroplasticity, and I adapted it and created my own called HOT. What positive neuroplasticity and research shows, this is so cool, at least I think it's really cool, is that you only have to spend 12 seconds 6 to 9 times a day to get away from that negative selection bias, to tilt more to the positive. And here's the thing, 12 seconds on something positive and pleasant. You're like, well, what the heck is positive and pleasant 6 to 9 times a day? Here's the thing, you don't have to have fireworks moments. It doesn't have to be this big, amazing event of pleasant. It can be, I am honored. Let's just say, I'm going to come up with a few things. I'm honored that you are all here. I'm honored that I have clean air to breathe. I'm honored that I had a nourishing lunch and that I got to, I'm thinking about things that were pleasant. I heard Barnaby's talk, and I get to share my story here. I get to meet wonderful people. I am happy that I have a t-shirt to wear because I only brought really hot clothes, and thanks for Tracy giving me the shirt so I don't have to be roasting up here today. It is noticing something that is minutely cool, pleasant, enjoyable, and focusing on it for 12 seconds. Find something in your surroundings right now that is kind of cool to you. Might be your backpack. You're like, ooh, I love that patch. This girl on the front row woman here has this kind of cool backpack and patch. Hey, I see a couple people wearing my pin. That kind of is awesome. What is it that is pleasant to you in your surroundings? I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Take in, notice something pleasant. Please. How many of you have noticed something pleasant? Yay! How do you make the ordinary extraordinary? Meaning, how do I fake it till I make it? How about those times when I'm like the Alexander in the terrible, awful, no good, very bad day? How do I find something pleasant? Well, all right, the carpet. Let's look at the carpet. Yes, is it a bit dirty? Yes. Okay, I've noticed that. But beyond that, well, there's kind of cool colors and shapes. And then I just remember that old comment like the old phrase, step on a crack, break your mama's back. I don't know if you remember that one. You're like, what the heck is this lady talking about? But I mean, really, like, what is it that jives your memory to think about something pleasant and even this really bizarre carpet? Like, why is that cool? So here's the deal. No matter when, no matter where, you can go and take in the good for 12 seconds. And not only enjoy that 12 seconds or longer, of course it can be longer, not only can you take it in while it's happening and get the benefit while it's happening, you get a lasting resource, because that's what research in our brain does. It wants yummy, yummy, goody, goody stuff. It wants loving, sensory, awesome, beautiful experiences in our world. So, H-O-T, hot, right? How do you keep a fire going? You need a few things. Oxygen, maybe a match. If you're really super cool and start a fire without a match, then you do that whole thing. You need wood of some sort, and those are kind of your materials to create a fire, right? So have the experience. How do you notice beneficial experiences you're having, or go and create one? I asked you to notice something in your surroundings, and then I asked you to notice the carpet. There's 2 of your 6 to 9 times today. There you go. So a way you could explain this to a teen is ask them to pick one of their favorite songs. A happy jam, not a depressing dive. All of us, remember when you'd break up with someone in high school and you'd put that like song on repeat? Mine was Losing My Religion. I had a little Phil Collins in there. I had Journey. I played that CD on my Discman. Some of you had cassette tapes, whatever your jam. teens are like, what are you talking about? And then it makes it fun. Have them play their song for you. Play your song for them. They'll probably think you're crazy. But if they're going to make us listen to their song, their Justin Bieber and their whatever, they got to listen to our stuff too. So that's kind of my joke too. All right. So pick a song you like. All of us, we can listen to one of our favorite songs. So open to the experience. If it's a campfire, the fire's lit, you notice it's going, you're at a campfire, you notice the moon and it's so pretty and you're opening to this experience. You are, open to all you can. Take it in with your senses. Notice what thoughts you're having while this is going on. Notice your feelings. Notice literally your senses. What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you touching? What are you tasting? How many of you can have memories to songs, right? Our brain is very connected to our senses. It's very primal. So if you listen to a positive song, a happy jam, rather than a depressing dive, you can open to this experience, savor the sweetness, take it in. If the song has a good lyrics or good beat, and you feel like jamming to it, jam to it. How many of you have been in the car and you're like, yeah, and then you look over and the person saw you dancing in the car? Yeah, then you rock out more. You're like, you're jealous. You know it. Open to the song, all right? And if you're not in a car and you really want to tune into the words, close your eyes. Wait, I can't tell you how many times I would hand out my CD of practices to teens back in the day when they had, CD players. And they would tell me, oh, I listened to your sitting meditation in the car. It was so good. And I was like, oh, my God. They were driving. No. So don't tell teens to close their eyes with the song in the car. Just saying, make sure you're clear about that. I tell my teens to take a mindful walk when they're stressed. I had a mom call me and say, you told my teen that when we got in a fight, she could take off. No, I didn't really say that. So we have to be careful about the receiver of our wisdom, perhaps extrapolating that and creating their own stories around that. So you want to make sure we always err on the side of caution and safety. So we have the O, open, enjoy the song. T, take it in. Savor that sweetness, attend to it for a bit, 12 seconds, 12 hours, however long. 12 hours would be pretty awesome. But how long? It doesn't have to be 12 seconds. Enjoy your campfire. And you know what? How do you add to it? S'mores. S'mores make campfires all the better, except when you've worked really hard to get that marshmallow good and then that thing catches on fire. And you're so angry because you worked really hard to get it nice and brown. Anyone feeling me on that? The reason I am saying these random things right now is because you're going to remember it. That girl talked about that marshmallow getting burned, is going to think about the campfire and taking in the experience. Let the experience sink into you like water gets absorbed into a sponge. Rick Hansen says, we are Velcro to the negative and Teflon to the positive. And I think with mindfulness and the things that I'm talking about, we can switch that and be Velcro to the positive and Teflon to the negative. It takes some training, it takes some time. Have the experience or go and create one, open to it, and take it in. Not only do you get to enjoy it while it's happening, you get creating lasting benefit and a resource yourself, you get to fill up your little piggy bank of well-being. Go and do something you enjoy today. Turn your beneficial experience into a lasting resource by using hot. Do things to resource yourself so that when you are on empty, when you are having a day and you got nothing left, you don't feel quite as bad because you've done something to prepare for it in a way. You have reserve. You got that piggy bank. And I was thinking of something else that escaped me, and that's okay. I like thinking of hot because it's easy to remember. It's easy, right? It's accessible. It's important to make this stuff accessible and portable and accessible to everyone. not just one person or that person, but all people. And that also takes us being creative. And when something doesn't fit, we have to find a different way of explaining it, a different way of talking about it so that someone does get it. A lot of my tools have come from teens not understanding what I was trying to ask and do. What about when someone is having hard times, to have them recognize the things that are going right rather than the things that are going wrong? Because in the United States, typically speaking, we have a lot of privileges that are often just assumed or given, such that we, have air to breathe and can eat. Not all of us, but most of in this room, we are rather privileged. And here's the thing is to notice your privileges, those basic needs that are being met for you, and not to feel bad about them, that you have them, but using those as an additional resource. It's matching someone where they're at. For example, if someone is depressed, they don't want to get out of bed, they don't want to take a shower, brush their teeth, or eat sometimes, they don't want to do things, you need to meet them where they're at. And then what that is meeting them with getting their basic needs being met, meaning get your butt in the shower, because that person will feel better. Any of us ever not taken a shower because we were a little sick or depressed and you took that shower and it just felt really good? It's meeting someone where they're at. So obviously, someone who is on a meal plan at school, you aren't necessarily going to talk about all the things that they are going to do when they can't do it. You have to also meet people where they're at and make it accessible in that way, teaching them self-care, teaching them what they're talking about, resourcing themselves and getting their needs met, and it's going to be different from person to person. How many of you have asked a teen what they like to do and they tell you nothing or I don't know? What do you like to do? I don't know. What do you like to do? Nothing. Or I've gotten that as an answer. So when I ask someone what they like to do, how can I assume they're going to give me an answer if they don't know what they like to do, or they don't realize they like to do things? And so asking someone what is pleasant to them, asking them what are they doing that they enjoy and is healthy. In the resource packet that I'll give you is this handout, which is a list of things, possible things that you can do that you enjoy. Some cost money, some don't. And what you can have people do is just mark all of the boxes that apply of things they like to do. They might not be able to do it all the time, but they might like it nonetheless. And then you can have them star or circle the top 3. And if you're in a classroom setting, maybe you can have people share what their top 3 are. And what this is gives someone an actual thing to say, hey, this is actually what I like to do. And they could take a picture of it, they can put it on their fridge, they can put it next to their bed, on their desk, and it's like, hey, there are things I like to do. Then occasionally you're going to come across a couple teens who will have nothing marked, or very few things marked. And what that is very telling to me that maybe there's something going on. Clinically, something in the community, something going on that needs to be addressed. It's information. We are information gatherers, and what we do with that information depends on each of us and our skill level, but nonetheless, it provides us with information, and it provides a concrete list to remind people what they like to do. A lot of times, people, all of us, we kind of get stuck, we get in the going and the doing instead of being, and we forget to do some of the things we like to do, or that there are things we like to do, and it's like just a friendly little reminder, of, oh, I can do this. Oh, yeah, I really love doing that. I haven't done that in a long time. Asking teens if they know what coping strategies are, both positive and negative. And strikingly, most don't, and often do not have the strategies that you want them to employ. Therefore, I have created a list that is in your packet that you will have access to, that you can photocopy and distribute, of 101 positive coping skills. I created this after many, many years of teens not knowing what a coping skill was or what they could do that I considered and I wanted them to know that is positive. Because a lot of times teens thought that what they did as positive as a positive coping skill actually wasn't positive or helpful. It was actually rather harmful and more so a negative coping skill. Be for ourselves. No one is going to value you as much as you. If you don't value you, if you don't assert yourself, if you aren't for yourself, often people won't be. And I'm saying this as us adults right here, be for ourselves. And then what that means is advocate for those kids. I worked at Kaiser, a large HMO in California. I don't know if Kaiser Permanente is here. I used to get in trouble because I'd go to IEPs. I do a lot of educational advocacy now. I don't work at Kaiser anymore, but I do a lot of ed advocacy on the side because I'm very, very familiar with Assembly Bill 3632, Chapter 26.5. I know a lot about the law, and I will go and fight for kids. And when I used to do it as Kaiser, they didn't like it. And I still did it anyway. Because no one is going to fight for these kids if a kid can't go fight for something they don't know. And so it's our job to help be for them, as well as for ourselves. We cannot help others if we are not a service to ourselves first. The heart pumps blood to itself first before it pumps blood to the rest of the organs of the body because it knows that's what it needs to do to survive. It is not selfish to engage in self-care. Asking ourselves and teaching young people to think about what they're grateful for every day. 5 things you're grateful for. Attitude of gratitude. Think of the 5 G's. You can have them like literally list 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. What are 5 things you're grateful for right now? And a teen says nothing. Do you have eyeballs? Do you have eyelashes? Do you have a shirt on? Do you have shoes on? Are you in a classroom? You can help them think about things that they could be grateful for when they can't think of things they're grateful for. What is teen self-care? What does all of that mean? And that it's important for all of us and young people to have healthy distractions sometimes. Sometimes when someone says, be mindful of all moments. No, if someone is really depressed, someone is, you do not have them go and sit. You do not have them think of their thoughts because you know what? That is a rabbit hole. That is a hamster wheel. No, and so what does that person need? They need self-care. Maybe they could mindfully walk. Maybe they can have some healthy distraction like a good laugh, a comedy, a good book, a cup of coffee or tea with a friend. It is not always the prescription to go and practice mindfulness. It is there's a mindfulness, let me clarify that, excuse me. You can always practice mindfulness. What type of mindfulness practice you do depends on you, depends on your mood, depends on your ability. There are a lot of disabilities, those that are seen, but there are many unseen, and so we need to adapt accordingly. Like, for example, mindful walking or a body scan type practice is going to be favorable over a sitting practice for someone who is depressed or anxious or having a panic attack. You do not ask them to focus on their breath. Someone who has ADHD and is going to appreciate a mindful walking practice or a yoga movement practice over a sitting practice. It doesn't mean that over time that young person can't sit and do a sit practice. It's a titration approach. Meet young people where they're at. Ask them if what they think they're doing is actually, that they think they're doing is self-care is actually self-harm. I was on a retreat and a young boy was wearing this bracelet around his, wearing this bracelet with pride. He was so excited that he went to this rave and there were all these drugs there. And it was like, he really loved that bracelet. I asked him if he would take it off so I could take this picture, and he was really worried about it. He was worried about taking it off and losing it or not getting it back. So something you wouldn't know about me, and this is being recorded, so this is a little different for me sharing this. I'm in recovery. And so I had the beautiful opportunity to talk about my story with teens on a retreat. I don't usually share my story in that way, and when I was able to share my story, they shared their story. And I was floored by how much more I learned in that context, how much they shared about their own use when I shared my story. Because in my clinical work, I never tell people ever. And I keep those boundaries very firm, but in this environment, people on a retreat that I would never see again out of the country, I shared, and I thought I was hearing the truths of teens and their drug use, and I wasn't. It was quite surprising to me. But when we talk about self-care, it does not have to be this day-long event or this really long thing of self-care. You can be practicing self-care all day long. And so I came up with these levels of self-care. And there's these 4 levels. So level 1 is, what are things you can do from 1 to 15 minutes a day that show yourself that you matter? You know, spray on cologne or perfume, take a shower, you know, pet your pet, make a healthy snack. Level 2. You can fold a piece of paper in half, by the way, and 4, there's your 4 levels to have someone fill out, and you can generate examples with them. So what's level 2? Well, taking a nap, going to a yoga, exercise class, dance class, reading a book or magazine, going to the movies a little bit longer. Level 3, when you tell someone you're doing nothing, you do something. What are the things you do when you say you're doing nothing? Maybe doing those for a day, once a month. And then level 4, spending time with people who nourish and support you at least once a month. What I love about this, asking teens about this, is asking for actual names. Because if you work with people and you get to know them relatively well, you know that that person is not really good for them, but they put them on the nourishing list. And you know that's the person that got them to sneak out and go and take an Uber and go to that concert that you know they weren't supposed to go to. But yet they put that person on the nourishing list. And so or someone might not write anybody. Maybe you're the only contact, the only nourishing person in their life. Levels of self-care are so important. And it is important to care for ourselves as well as, if not more than you would for your smartphone. I came up with this self-care water bottle, and this is a handout you have access to when I send you your resource packet. I want to show you some of the drawings of teens that they've done. What I love about this is people put stickers all over their laptops, their iPad cases, or their water bottles. Teens in particular will, like, at least when I'm in California, I mean, they're just covered with these stickers. And so I thought, what are the things that fill up your water bottle? What are the things you love that nourish you and support you? Who are the people? What's the music? What are your favorite bands? What are the things you like to do? Who are your friends? What are your phrases that you like to remind yourself? What are your mantras? Keep being you. Be grateful. You know what would be so cool if every one of you did something like this? So I was on the Today Show this year, or last year. So crazy, right? Like, so crazy. And what was crazy is they flew out to California and interviewed a school that I helped create a club called a Reach Club. And what we did is we took Post-its and we wrote positive statements on all the Post-its, and we posted them all over the school on the lockers. And here's the thing, we didn't tell them where to post them. All of a sudden, a whole bunch of the teens were gone. I had no idea where they went. They covered the girls' mirrors in the bathroom. I get goosebumps. When I get goosebumps, I'm like very excited and very happy because it means I'm talking about what's real to me, what I feel in my gut. Honor your guts. Honor them. Look at how cool these are. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to thoroughly complete. And also, one other thing I want to point out is this levels of self-care. There's a slide I didn't include on accident. I have a handout, a 1-page, where there's 4 gray boxes that it's like charting your self-care with these levels that you'll have to photocopy. Here's the thing. How many of you have been to a talk where you got like nothing out of it? You listen to someone talk and you're like, okay, cool, now what? I hope I'm not that person. So I have like a 30-page resource packet in addition to your PowerPoint that I want you to have. I want you to photocopy it. I want you to get it out there. I want you to not feel like you're going to wait to do this till that one day when you feel you're ready. Best advice I ever got. Gina, you're never going to be ready. So guess what? Do it. Share it. What's going to happen? What are we talking about? Are we giving someone pills? Are we giving someone shots? We're saying, hey, take care of yourself. Let me tell you all these things you like to do. Enjoy your life. Be well. I care about you. you know. It is technically 1:50, and our talk is supposed to end now. And so actually my talk is over. But I want to let you know that if you have a question, you can. And my friends are teaching at 2. Jennifer Cohen-Harper is a dear friend of mine who's teaching, and I wanted to give a plug for her talk that's next, because she also had a talk right now, but you're here, so you didn't see it. So she has another talk at 2. In case you were wondering where to go, that's what I encourage you to do. I am done with my talk. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Is there any question that I can answer for you, or you're all, I think people want to go to their next thing. If you have a question, I'm up here for a few minutes. Yeah. There are sign-in sheets going around, and I'm sure you'll be able to find one as you move out of the room. Here's the sign-in sheet right here. Thank you.